Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This is the lecture about phonology, third year students in Department of English. In this lecture, we're going to talk about the main points: phonology, phonemes, phones and allophones, minimal pairs and sets, phonotactics, syllables, clusters, co-articulations, assimilation, and elision. Now, when we come to the study of phonology, as we have said previously, then it is the systematic study, which is one of the systematic study of one of the branches of the systematic study of language. So phonology is the first systematic study which deals with sound. So simply speaking, it is the scientific and systematic study of sound patterns, how to structure sounds, how sounds are patterned within a specific language. So we study the phonology of English, the phonology of Arabic, the phonology of French, the phonology of Portuguese, and so on and so forth. So it deals with the particular sound system of a language, of a given language. So we think of, for example, the te sound. When we have square brackets, then it means phonetics. It means phonetics. So when we think the phonetic sound te, like this, in the following words: tar, star, writer, eighth. Now here the te behaves differently in each and every every word of these given here. So this different behavior is not the concern of phonetics, it is the concern of phonology. Why? Because we deal with the te here scientifically and systematically and in terms of language. So this is the job of the phonology or phonologists. Now, what is the basic unit according to which we study phonology? Of course, the basic unit of studying phonology is phonemes. So what is the phoneme? The phoneme is the minimal meaningful speech sound of unit, or it is the unit of speech sound which has the minimal meaningful sound. So a phoneme is the minimal unit. So how can phoneme work? How can a phoneme work? Of course, it works contrastively. It depends on contrastive function. So what is meant by contrastive function? The contrastive function of a phoneme is the feature which distinguishes a phoneme from other. For example, we say te. Te means all the distinctive features that make this sound, which is te, distinct from other sounds. For example, fe, they, etc. So it depends on the contrastive features of given phonemes. Now, sometimes there is less or lesser levels than the phoneme itself. Sometimes we deal with phones and allophones. Now the phoneme, for example, the phoneme te is the umbrella term for all the reflections of this phoneme, for all the pronunciations of this phoneme. So these different pronunciations of a given phoneme are called allophones, and each one of these pronunciations is called phones. Phones, نطق أو صوت. So, phones are phonetic units. Of course, they are not phonemic, they are not phonological, they are phonetic units and appear in square brackets, of course, as we just mentioned. We can have several versions of one phoneme. So the phoneme is an abstract, meaningful sound unit. It is an abstract because it is represented in the mind. When we represent it on the organs of speech, let's say on the tongue, then it is physical, and then it deals with sound, it deals with phonetics, it deals with phones. And the group of phones that represent one phoneme are called allophones. Now, if you talk about the phoneme te, for example, tar, this te, which is with h voice, te, this is one reflection or one version of the phoneme te. Then the second one, the second te and writer, which is mostly pronounced differently, writer, like this, is another version of the phoneme te. And the third one, eighth, which is almost silent, again another version of the phoneme te. Now, if you take an example from the Iraqi Arabic language, if we take an example regarding the phones and allophones of certain phonemes. Now, if we take the word barda, the curtain, if we take this word in the Iraqi Arabic, some of our people pronounce it like be, barda, okay? Other people pronounce it like parda, with pe. Now, this be and pe, although the sound, the pronunciation may give another phoneme from the English language, but we don't have this pe in Arabic, but we have it be and pe. Both people, or both pronunciations, refer to the phoneme be. And these two versions of the phoneme be in parda and barda refer to the same phoneme, which is be. Okay? And the same example we can deal with Burtuqal and Bartaqal, bu, ba, okay? And the same thing with Mudir and Madir, mu, ma. I've heard some people say mantaqa with ta, other people say mantaqa with ta, and so on and so forth. So these are reflections, these are the phones or the allophones of a given phoneme, which is found in Arabic, of course. Now, how can we know the contrast between one phoneme and the other? Simply speaking, how can we recognize this phoneme from other phonemes? Of course, the relation is contrastive one. The relation is a contrastive one, but how can we contrast? How can we find out? Of course, we have the minimal pairs and sets. Now, what is a pair in phonology? The pair in phonology, when two words are identical in form, except for a contrast in one phoneme. Two words are identical in form, in pronunciation, but or except one phoneme in the same position. Of course, it must be in the same position. Then the two words are described as a minimal pair. Now, if you take the words bat and fat, the last te, both are the same. The last a, both are the same. The initial two sounds in the two words are different, are contrasted. Now, here we have different phonemes, two phonemes, be and fe. Why? Because they are in complementary distribution. Now, or bat, bet, bat, bet. Now, here the contrast is between a and a and a, and so on and so forth. Now, what about the minimal sets? The minimal sets, a set is when a group of words can be differentiated by changing one phoneme in the same position in the word, then we have a minimal set, not pair, two words, no, several words. When we have two words, then we have minimal pair. When we have several words, we have the minimal set. Now, if you take this one, feet, fit, fat, fate, foot. Now, feet, all these words have the fe as a common contrastive feature, which is the phoneme fe. Now, fe in feet, fit in fit, fe in fit, fe in fat, fe in fate, fe in foot. Of course, the fe in these 5 words is pronounced differently, and these different pronunciations or different versions, if you just remember, are the allophones of the phoneme fe. Now, this is about the phonology, the phoneme, the minimal unit of studying phonology. Now, there is what is called phonotactics. There is the phonotactics. The phonotactics is the study of arrangements or permitted or allowed arrangements of sounds in a given language. Now, sounds, I mean phonemes, in a given language, for example, in Arabic, in English, in French, must have certain order, certain rules to be followed in combining them, I mean the sounds, in the phonemes, into understandable words. Now, the scientific study of speech sounds of a language in general is phonotactics. Speech sounds of a language in general. So, phonotactics here, the permitted, if you see this, the permitted arrangements. How to arrange sounds into meaningful units. For example, the word Ahmed. A-ha-ma-da. Okay? Now, these sound units or these phonemes are arranged in a special way to give the word Ahmed. Now, how many permitted arrangements can we have from combining these sounds? 1, 2, 3, 4, whatsoever. But we have to follow. We have to have meaningful words. After the combination of these sounds, there must be a kind of meaningful units in the language. For example, the word here, English. The word English. The a, la, sh. Now these, if we rearrange them, is there any unit, or is there more than one unit to be yielded from this combination, or is there a new combination? Now, these are the constraints. Of course, any language must have certain constraints, and these constraints are the rules of combining phonemes all together to yield meaningful units. And this feature in language, if you remember, one of the language properties called duality, the layering of 2 or more than 2 layers of language. And in terms of phonology, it is called phonotactics. Now, according to phonotactics, we have syllables. Syllables, combination of 2 or more than 2 phonemes. Syllables. The syllable is a unit of pronunciation typically larger than a single sound or smaller than a word. So it is larger than the phoneme. It sometimes could be a phoneme, like a. It could be a phoneme, but it is it gives the meaning of a unit of language. Could be a word. So, for example, card Now, ka is a syllable, a is another syllable, and da is ka, a, and da. They are all of these three sounds are combined according to the phonotactic rules to give one syllable. One syllable. So this syllable is called C, V, C. C consonant, V vowel, and C consonant. Or car, consonant vowel again, because it. Why CVC, CV, VC, V alone? Because all of these four different versions can give meaningful units. Because card gives meaning, car gives meaning, is gives meaning, and R gives meaning. Now consider the following example when describing the syllable CV. So here the C is the consonant, the V is the vowel. Combining both of them to give car according to the phonotactic constraints or phonotactic rules of arranging words, arranging sounds, phonemes, they'll give meaningful units. Now, if we look at this this syllable, we'll have the classification of syllables. Of course, the syllables can be open syllables and closed syllable. What is meant by open and what is meant by closed? The open syllable is the one which ends in a vowel and no coda. Ends in a vowel and, for example, car. This is an open syllable. Or the closed syllable which ends in a coda. The coda is the consonant. As we said, C consonant, initial, V vowel, which is the peak of the syllable, and the last C, which is optional, is the coda. So the set, the first one is the set, which is optional, C consonant. The second one is obligatory, the peak, which is vowel, and the third one is optional, which is the coda. Now, syllables can cluster, and this clustering, of course, it depends on the particular language given. For example, in Arabic, we have certain cluster of syllables. In English, we have another set of clustering. For example, we in English we can have the cluster of green, CCVC, or street, CCC, three consonants, V vowel and C. While in Arabic we do not have such a clustering. That's why we face difficulties when pronouncing words like street. We do not say street. We vowelize in between the clustered consonants. We say street instead of street. We say structure instead of structure, and so on and so forth. Now, syllables, although combined, but not always pronounced separately. They're always pronounced in terms of what is called connected speech, and this and the study of connected speech is treated as. So, what is co-articulation effects, or the process? It is a process, of course, of co-articulation. Co-articulation process of making is the process of making one sound almost at the same time as the next. This is called co-articulation. So, simply speaking, it is the influence of one sound by the other. The influence of the preceding sound by the following one, or the vice versa, the influence of the following sound by the preceding one. And this process yields different sub-processes when producing the speech. Of course, this could not be happened when producing the speech at a slow speech or slow motion. Why? Because we will pronounce the syllables with ease, so we will not have co-articulation. But when we speak rapidly, the syllables, the phonemes, the sound units will be influenced by one another, and that's why the connected speech has a special kind of toning. Now, we will have one of these processes is the assimilation. One of these processes is the assimilation. The other one is the elision. So we either assimilate phonemes or sounds, or delete. Okay, we either assimilation, or delete, or elision. Now, what is assimilation and what is elision? Assimilation, again, is a co-articulation process which occurs when two sounds occur in sequence and some aspect of one segment is taken or copied by the other. So one or more, of course, one or more aspects of one segment, one sound or one phoneme, is taken by the following or the other sound. And here we have different types of assimilation. We have the nasalization, when the influence is taken by nasal sounds. We call it in Arabic idgham. Idgham, I think idgham bighanna. Vowel nasalization, as in pin, pan. So the influence is by the last nasal sound, ne. We have velarization. I can go. So ne and ge become ang. This assimilation. I can go. Vowel reduction. You and me. So this and becomes n. Only n. You and me. You see? And so on. There are so many assimilation processes. Now, here are the types of assimilation. It could be progressive, regressive, and reciprocal. Now, progressive, if the phoneme changes to match the preceding, it depends whether the influence is going to be on the preceding or the following. If the influence on the preceding phoneme, it is progressive. If the influence on the following phoneme, it is regressive, backward. Okay. If the assimilation is mutual on the progress and on the preceding and on the following, it is reciprocal, mutual. So consonant, in the case of two phonemes, can fuse completely and give birth to a different one. This is called coalescence. The result of consonant assimilation is usually a geminate consonant. For example, we say writer. Sometimes it's pronounced writer. Okay, this de, which is not te, neither de. Not te, neither de. This is a new acrophoneme. This is called the process. Called coalescence. Okay, and the second co-articulation effect is called elision. Elision is a process of not pronouncing a sound. Simply speaking, process where a sound is not pronounced. This might be present in the deliberately careful pronunciation. Deliberately careful pronunciation. For example, you and me. You and me. Okay? Friendship. There is no de. Friendship. Aspects. There is no te. Aspects. Okay? Aspects. Friendship. You and me. So these the elision of these sounds is deliberately used. Why? Because for the ease of or the in the connected speech. These represent scratching the surface of phonology. It is an introduction. Of course, we do not dig deep in phonology. Otherwise, there are so many to be said, so many issues to be said in this regard. That's all for your textbook, and that's all for me in this lecture. Thank you very much. If you have any inquiry or question, you might contact me online through Model. That's all for me. Thank you.